You all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good to see you all here today. Still very nice to be back live and in person. Eventually it won't seem different anymore. It'll just seem kind of how it is. But it's definitely still different in a nice way from staring at myself in a computer screen for the last 16 months. So really good to be back with everybody. Glad to have you here. You know, it's for me, one of the best practices during this entire experience, and even today, is the teachings on impermanence. And to just remember that, you know, as the Buddha talked and spoke on impermanence, he said all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, meaning they come together for a period of time and cease to exist. And that's everything, including ourselves, our family, our friends, our loved ones, our animals, our clothes, our food, our shelter, if we have one, our sleeping bag, whatever it might be, that everything in our present space is impermanent. And because we attach and cling and often crave and desire things to stay how they are forever, we tend to suffer drastically. And impermanence can be, very often is, you know, severe, tragic loss. And it can be simple as losing your keys, which was my way to announce that if anybody left keys here last Saturday, we have them. I just figured out how to work that in there, you know. So let me know. If not, I'm looking for a scion out there other than mine to drive. So we have keys. But there's only one key. I don't even know what else to look for. So, but everything changes. And it's a really beautiful reminder as you go through your days, not just what we've gone through the last 16 months and continue to go through, but as you go through your days to recognize your moods will change. You might wake up and be in a great mood. And that's a wonderful thing, but anyone here ever been in a great mood? Anyone had that great mood last forever? Right? And when you're in a bad mood, what happens to the bad mood? Also doesn't last. Thank you for that, right? Otherwise, that would suck. We'd be stuck in bad moods all day. So impermanence is a really beautiful teaching, regardless of what you apply it to. And it's something really to watch, even just throughout the day. I mean, even in the hour that you sit in this space here, the impermanence of everything, right? The feelings, the sensations, the sounds, the emotions, the comfort, Maybe your leg feels great right now, and maybe in 40 minutes it's going to hurt, right? Or maybe you have something really heavy on your mind right now, and maybe 40 minutes you'll feel better. Maybe you'll feel worse. We don't know. But I tend to look at impermanence as a really beautiful practice. One, because it's just reality. It's just truth. So as much as we want to resist impermanence, waking up to the truth that that's just how things are makes life a lot easier. But aside from that, in a very, I think, logical and practical way, for me, impermanence has become a beautiful way to just take each moment as it arises and to appreciate each moment as it arises, because you never know when the person or place or thing in your life will be no longer in your life. So for me, what impermanence has led to is just an absolute endless gratitude and appreciation for all that you have right now. And even if you have the bad moods or the broken hearts or the terrible days, to appreciate those, because you know what those mean? You're alive. And better, did you say there are better days to come? Yeah. I think I heard a combination of like 4 things at once. So it means you're alive and better days are ahead. So always find appreciation, for that in each moment. All right, so with that, we're going to sit. We'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're sitting on a cushion, often helps slide with the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap. If you're on a chair or bench or however you're sitting, also just trying to push your stomach forward. Feet would be flat on the ground if comfortable. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means your leg hurts. So if you have an itch, don't sit there for 10 minutes wondering if it's okay to scratch your itch. The person next to you is not judging you on how well you sit. Trust me, they got their own madness to deal with, right? So just find yourself comfortable. And to our millions of YouTube followers, I apologize I didn't welcome you at the beginning, but welcome. Glad you're here. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return to breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. No one else to be. everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, to practice meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize whatever you feel now is quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind. Whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. Practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This is not an easy practice, not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. It's not closing your eyes and pretending you're sailing down the river and looking at all the birds and trees and flowers and thinking everything is grand. Meditation is direct perception into the present moment. And very often that present moment that we face is incredibly difficult and challenging. And so what we're working on is not running away from the difficulties and challenges we face, but learning to be with them as they arise, have the wisdom to see the impermanence within them, and treat each moment with as much kindness and compassion as humanly possible. That's very difficult to do. Now, especially for those who may be new to meditation, it's important to understand that there are lots of things we use to escape to. Some of them healthy, some of them unhealthy. Everyone has their different things they use. But this practice is learning to sit with everything. If we spend our whole lives running from things, then we will spend our whole lives running from things. And the biggest thing that people often run from, which is actually quite funny because it's impossible to get away from, is what?
Themselves.
Yourself. How long have you been running from yourself, Bridget?
50 years.
50 years. Wow, that's a long time. Yeah. That's a lot of running. It can get tiring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is the practice of waking up to the present moment. Again, for those who are new to Buddhism, Buddhism isn't about learning about something that existed 2,500 years ago in some faraway land, told by some people with other names and different languages. Buddhism is about waking up to yourself. And the beauty of that is you don't have to go anywhere to do that. Because you know who you're stuck with all day long? You. Not me, that would really suck. Just you. Right? You're stuck with yourself. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else. It's not easy. And that's why we call it a practice. A lifelong practice. So, once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything that's around us, which is where we spend so much of our time, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. And we work on changing our mind and our reaction to what's happening, life gets simpler. But that requires us to let go of one of the things that we cling to so often. I'm sure nobody in this room ever tries to control anything, so I apologize for wasting my breath, but in case you have difficulties or challenges or spend a lot of time trying to control other people or things, this is letting go of that. And that requires moving past our own ego and our own sense of self that says, I am most important. Also very difficult. But if you like challenges, then Buddhism is a great place to start. So, if you want the easy route, then I don't know. I won't make any suggestions. Too much risk of offending someone. So, with that, I'll pause. And as always, I just really prefer to open up to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. I always prefer to just use the rest of the time to respond to what's on your mind. And we'll go from there. So. Yeah.
I was in prison a few days ago doing a class, and we did a class where we asked each person to go around and say, I have been in the future, I wish it would be more. And as you know, the responses are very well thought out. There's one response that I'm kind of still sitting with a little bit. And one of the prisoners said, in the past, I've been too generous, and in the future, I want to be more selfish. Now, judgingly, say, oh, you know, less generosity, more selfish, that can't be right. But I acknowledge, I said, obviously, the generosity has caused you to suffer in the past, and you will just suffer less in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last 2 days, I've kind of been sitting with it, and maybe came to the conclusion that depending on where you are on the path, maybe you can be too generous.
Sure.
Even though that, and so I just thought maybe you could address that and the practice of generosity.
Yeah. So, good question, thought, just to repeat for those joining us online. And what he brought up is with his prison experience a couple days ago as a volunteer there, that they often start out with, I wish I was, how did you phrase it exactly? I wish I.
In the past, I have been.
In the past, I have been, and in the future, I'd like to be. And somebody brought up, which he's been wrestling with the last few days, in the past, I have been too generous, and in the future, I'd like to be more selfish. And so the struggle of trying to make sense of that in one's mind when this Buddhist practice seems to be all about generosity and the practice of giving. Time, attention, your heart, a smile, a hug. There's so many things that we give. And so the question around how to make sense of that, as you go on your kind of Buddhist path. So my first response is, I sum that up well enough to, yeah, perfect. Set the path aside. And when you say the path, those who, what you're talking about is the Buddhist path, the Eightfold Path, the practice of the Paramitas, the practice of the Four Noble Truths. Very often we can get, and this is for everybody, and I've had to struggle with this for years, very often we can get locked in to thinking this is the Buddhist path and this is the way. And I get it. You're in an institution, facility, and you're there to lead a Buddhist class. And so obviously you're leading from that mindset. But set the Buddhist box aside and recognize, and I've seen this for years, I would say one of the greatest things that leads people to Buddhist practice, or one of the greatest traits or characteristics or personalities that lead people to Buddhist practice, is that they are incredibly giving and generous people towards everyone except themselves. And they completely burn themselves out. And they give and they give and they give, and they've never filled their own cup. So I see that day in and day out in a place like this, right? People who are work in any sort of environment, teachers, educators, caretakers, therapists, parents, spouses, any sort of place where you're in a situation where you constantly have to give, right? And they destroy themselves. So giving is a wonderful practice, but only if you recognize that you must have kindness and compassion towards yourself first. And what often arises with people who just give and give and give, especially if they think, now let's look at the Buddhist box. Buddhist box says give. Let's just say you're brand new to Buddhism. The Buddhist box says, give people time, give them your attention, give them your heart, give them your smile, right? That's what the Buddhist box is teaching. The Buddhist box is also teaching that as you give, you accumulate merit, and there's a great possibility that your life can be better because you're giving your time and attention to take care of others. This is all in that Buddhist box. Now you follow that for 6 months, and you've been giving, and then all of a sudden you take a time out and you kind of check the little scoreboard over here, and you start thinking, well, I just gave to people for 6 months and they didn't do a darn thing for me. Now you're angry. Now you're resentful. Now you followed something that you believe was supposed to bring something back to you, right? So we want to be very careful with that. The true teaching on dana, which is generosity to giving, is very specific. What the Buddha taught. The Buddha said there are 3 factors for giving that must be in place for it to actually be true dana, meaning generosity. And that is to feel pleasant before, pleasant during, and pleasant after. This is what giving actually is, right? Has anyone here ever given something to someone and felt really not so good about doing it? Right? That's not true generosity. That's giving out of guilt, out of pressure, out of obligation. That's giving another very clear teaching on the Bodhisattva practice, the Bodhisattva path, is that there is no giver, there is no receiver, and there is no gift. In other words, you are giving without any expectation of anything in return. There are no strings attached. My all-time greatest teaching that I ever came across around dana, generosity, giving, is written by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, Ajahn Jeff, and it's you just Google "no strings attached," the Buddhist teachings on generosity. And he goes into incredible detail on these, or beautiful metaphors and detail on these teachings. I can send it to you. But one must be careful in thinking that they're giving, that it doesn't leave that pride and ego to kind of, look at me, I'm a big giver. And then, like I said, 6 months down the road or 6 years down the road, you're not getting anything back, and now you have resentment. So just some thoughts on that. That when somebody, and again, I'm sure other people in this room can relate to that, when somebody gives, whatever it is, if you're not careful, you will eventually start to build up this, well, I've been given to you forever, what do I get back? And you want to watch that, because that can be harmful to yourself and to others, because then you put all these expectations on others. You know, no gift, no giver, no receiver. Does that give you some thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Other questions?
This might be a dumb question.
There are no dumb questions.
Is there only ever one Buddha, or have there been multiple? He was a man, right?
He was just a man. He was just a dude.
One or multiple?
Well, definitely first off, there are no, seriously, I said it, but there are no dumb questions ever in anything, right? There was an old ESPN like sports commercial that said something about there are no dumb questions, there are only people who ask questions, right? And it was always interesting, because then when I started, so many people start their question in Buddhism with, this might be a dumb question, right? There was Siddhartha Gautama, who is what we refer to as the Buddha. The word Buddha just means awakened. And so he was a human who was a prince, lived a wealthy, rich life for 29 years, left home, roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years, and at 35 sat down and said, I'm not leaving until I figure out why we suffer. He sat for 21 days under a Bodhi tree. He figured out the cause of suffering. He taught the Four Noble Truths, which is the first teaching. These 5 dudes, and the exit sign directly behind you on the wall there, above it is an image of the Buddha sitting with the first 5 disciples. That's the first time he taught. Those 5 guys came over and they were like, hey, there's Siddhartha. He looks like he's figured something out. Let's go sit with him. He taught, and they said, we will call you the Buddha. So he became referred to as the Buddha for the next 45 years, and he died at 80. So there is one historical Buddha, right? Now, and the teachings really stem from that historical Buddha. Now you go 600 years after the Buddha died into Mahayana Buddhist teachings, and you open up a Mahayana Buddhist sutra, and they will recite the names of countless Buddhas, emanation bodies, Buddha of incredible radiant light, Buddha of shining yellow sun, right? Buddha of incredible blue clouds. There will be endless references to Buddhas, right? I gave up years ago trying to analyze and figure out any of that, right?
I feel like I'm gonna make it, so I
Makes sense?
makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah, it's, you know, and I often, I said this, I think even the last 2 classes since we've been here, if the Buddha said it or if Donald Duck said it, doesn't matter. Very often in Buddhism, people can get attached to the Buddhist thing. If Donald Duck has wisdom to impart and it's going to bring less suffering to my life and your life and the life of those around me, then all hail Donald Duck. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the history stuff, those kinds of things are cool to learn and to read about, and stories and all the endless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. You know, I mean, I was kind of brought up in Buddhism, not raised, but my Buddhist experience for the last 18 years was very much around cultural Buddhism, Taiwanese Buddhism, very much into Pure Land Buddhism, very devout, very faith-based, things like that. It's not what I share, but when I do my offerings and my prayers and my own personal practice, they are to all Buddhas and all Bodhisattvas of all time and all space and all directions, right? Because to take it one step further, I wasn't going to go there, but now I am. Siddhartha Gautama, they say, is the Buddha of this, think of it as, to say world system is a little odd, but just our time. That there have been endless Buddhas before Siddhartha Gautama, and that there will be endless Buddhas after Siddhartha Gautama. But for a very long period of time, and I don't mean like 100 years, I mean like 1 trillion times 1 trillion years, the Buddha that we know as the historical Buddha is Siddhartha. He is represented as the dude sitting there who looks like he needs to eat a sandwich, right? That is the emaciated Buddha. The statue behind the emaciated Buddha is Kuan Yin Bodhisattva. Her name means hearer of the world's cries. She is the compassion body of the Buddha. The Dalai Lama, they say, is the literal rebirth of Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, right? So the emaciated Buddha, that was the Buddha prior to awakening. You want that story? It's a good one. All right. So when the Buddha left his palace and he left the life of a wealthy prince, right? Imagine for a minute you are a, royal family member and you decide to just sneak off in the middle of the night. And at that time in India, 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Christ, they thought that if they overcome the attachment to the physical form, that's part of awakening, right? And so there are lots of stories about what they did, but it's said that they lived on 1 grain of rice a day. And they would do things like stand on one leg for weeks at a time or hang from a tree, trying to overcome the attachment to the physical form. There was so much tied up in this physical body, right? And they wanted to move past that. So they became very unhealthy, very sick, very hungry, right? And the story is that the Buddha, Siddhartha at this time, before the Buddha, came to a riverbed and somebody offered him food. And all those 5 guys at that time that were with him, they were like, no, you can't eat that. We're supposed to be, practicing and living on 1 grain of rice a day. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing obviously all of this, something to the effect of, well, I'm hungry. So he took the bowl of food by the river and he said, I'm going to put it in the stream. And if it goes against the stream, then I'm going to eat. Put the bowl in the stream, it went against the stream. That's where the phrase against the stream comes from, because Buddhism is very much against the stream of typical modern day, or any time really, typical way of thought. And so the bowl went against the stream. So he started to eat. Those 5 guys, they left him. You sell out, you trader, how could you eat? You don't know what you're talking about. I love Alex's story. He calls him a food eater, right? So they left him. He continued on his journey. He eventually awakened. And the story I told earlier where they all came back, right? Now, what this teaches us is, in Buddhism, what's called the middle path. So critical for all people, especially lay people. We're not monks, we're not nuns. We're just going through our days, right? We're lucky if you can get an hour or 2 of your little Buddhist stuff throughout the week, and then you're back to your crazy, maddening life. Right? No offense to anyone who doesn't have a crazy, maddening life. Right? So the middle path, if you have a guitar string, you ever played guitar, sing the guitar? Okay, let's imagine for a minute. If you have it, it's who plays guitar? All right, I see a hand. If you have a guitar string and it's too tight and you try to play it, what happens? Break. If it's too loose? Sounds bad or no sound? I didn't really hear you. No sound. But there we go, no sound, right? So if it's too loose, you don't get much sound. So there's a balance there for the guitar strings. This is our life, is finding that balance. The Buddha did not have balance at that time, right? Also not to live in excess. So when we started the Dharma Bum Temple downtown almost 15 years ago, we opened it with the emaciated Buddha, not this grand, fully enlightened Buddha, because we were this guy. We were ignorant, we were stupid, we were starving physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We were near death. And we chose that as our Buddha for our main shrine because it represented us. And he gave us hope that if this guy who was near death could awaken, then there was hope for us. Right? So the middle path. So then when we came here, we settled in here for a year or 2, we had a beautiful opportunity for Maggie and I really to look at what we consider proper shrines and really what warms our heart. And we decided that the best thing for this temple and the best thing to watch over all of us, the one in the middle, is the Bodhisattva of Kuan Yin. That what this temple needed, what this country needs, what this world needs, to balance the middle path is great. But what we really need is compassion. So we have compassion that sits over all of us while we work on our balance. Does that help? I know, then you go to this one and this one. They also have beautiful teachings. Samantapada, the great practice, diligence. The 6 tusks represent the 6 paramitas of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. Right? This over here is Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. So typically you would have the Buddha in the middle, and then the Guan Yin and Manjushri as the Bodhisattvas, but we're not really your typical temple. So, yeah.
Do you consider yourself holy?
God, no. The question to clarify was, do I consider myself, I am an ignorant, unenlightened fool, and I'm not trying to be modest, I'm not trying to be like, oh, look at him. Like, spend a day in my head, I don't know you at all. I'd be willing to bet my thoughts are 1,000,000 times worse than yours. Yeah. My head is an absolute nightmare. It has been for a very long time.
Accepting your truth is difficult.
Accepting your truth is difficult, but it is the path to awakening. If you don't accept your truth, you're screwed. Thus, we're all here. You know? So, again, no offense to the enlightened ones in the room, but yeah, that's, to me, the start was waking up to your own suffering, your own truth, your own unenlightenedness. Yeah. And if anybody tells you they're awakened or they're enlightened, leave. Yeah. I mean, it's very clear teaching in Buddhism. You get a lot of gurus out there, a lot of people saying, you know, follow me, I'm the enlightened one, and I know the path. That's not the way. It's not the way the Buddha taught at all. The Buddha actually said the only one that can do it for you is you. So, great documentary called Kumare for anyone who hasn't seen it. Kumare. Check it out, it's good. So on that, I am going to close those just so I can do a couple announcements at the end, unless anyone has any burning questions they want to share. All right, so we'll join palms. We do a transfer of merit. Any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May the merit be transferred to the 4 million people who have lost lives during the last 16 months of this pandemic, and to their family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple, like I said, nearly 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist teachings to those who show up. Those of us who lead, there's a handful or so of us. We're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. Unenlightened folks like everybody else trying to figure it out. So we do our best to share our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Just about every night we have different practices going on. We have a modified schedule as we've reopened. I'll touch on that in a minute. But it's really great just to be back and open it all. Again, March 12, 2020, we put a sign up on the door that said closed, and we were thinking maybe 2 weeks. And 16 months later, we reopened those doors. So endless gratitude for everybody that is here, for everyone that has helped keep us here, for everything that everyone has done during these last 16 months to allow this space to exist and to be in a position to even open it all. So obviously we remain cautious, as I've shared the last couple of classes I've done, and I'll continue to for a little while. Whatever the mainstream view is in San Diego or California of this country about the pandemic and the coronavirus, we are doing our best to stay many months behind what most people say. If nothing else, it's a way to just really show respect and appreciation and honor those who have been deeply impacted and affected by what has occurred and is still occurring to this day. So we have modified things to our best judgment. The reality is nobody knows the ultimate truth on what's going on. Everybody uses educated science and guesses to figure out what is best. We don't know what's best, so we are erring on the side of extreme caution to allow people to come here and feel comfortable coming here. Typically, Saturday morning has 70, 80 people in here, and most people don't want to be sitting next to 70 or 80 people right now. So we're doing our best to be mindful and cautious of that. Our current schedule, definitely follow the website to see what's going on. We are hosting in-person classes up here. Tuesday, I do the Tuesday night class. Alex is doing the loving kindness, the metta meditation on Wednesday nights, and Travis leads Dharma Bum Basics and meditation on Thursday nights. Here we are Saturday morning, and our recovery sangha meets right now Sunday morning at 10 a.m. up here, and Tuesday night downstairs. All the outreach programs, for the most part, are on hold. It's going to be quite a while until we start putting people out into a highly unvaccinated population downtown with food distribution and going into the areas where we have transient folks living on the streets. So we're staying cautious. The RSVP system, we have sampled it for the last week. On my personal end, it's been an incredible, absolute nightmare to deal with. A really wonderful practice. I think between 6 o'clock last night and 11 o'clock this morning, we had 15 people. It's really great because it actually holds people accountable. So it's really nice for people to like be accountable and responsible and write in and say, I'm sorry, I can't make it. But then we've had seats that have been held for like 2 weeks for 15 people, and then they get released like last minute. So we're still not sure how to handle that. The RSVP system will probably go away, if not completely, pretty close to it. But I honestly don't know yet. So stay tuned. The website will have everything. If you go on the website and you open up the class for that time, if there is no link to RSVP, that means, help me out here, if there's no link to RSVP, what does that mean? You don't have to RSVP. If the bathroom sign says public restroom, please wear shoes, what does that mean? Yeah, we are getting there. Right? I'm not worried about awakening. I just have to make sure everybody else awakens. So that's it. Thanks all for being here. Buddha for you. And the temple, same thing. Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 3, it will be open for just open time. The rest of the time during the day, it's closed. We are sitting Monday through Friday at 8 and 8:30 in the morning. We do a morning meditation. So just show up at 8 or 8:30 or for the whole thing. That is going on. But typically the temple would be open all day and all weekend. We will close it after morning meditation and then open up again in the evening for class. And again, Saturday, Sunday, temple is open from 12 to 3, so you're welcome to hang out. Buddha for you, same thing. It is open downstairs 12 to 3 Saturday, Sunday, and will be open in the evenings just for about an hour before class. But again, we're just not looking to open everything up fully yet. So we appreciate your patience. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you sitting with masks and, just allowing us to observe the impermanence and figure out what's best for this Sangha and this community, for all's health and safety. So I wish you well. Have a good day. Be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.